got a bunch of calls, but they had asked me if I would throw these questions to you, Andy, myself. So I'm happy to do it and get as many questions in as possible this way, I think. First of all, Andy, if you don't mind, you talked a little bit about this with us last time you were here, but every day seems more news from the Biden administration and the border. What's your sense of the new rules with immigrations and customs enforcement, arrests, deportations, and this fabulous headline from the Washington Post: Biden faces border challenge as migrant families arrive in greater numbers. Obviously, they're not seeing the point of the headline, but I get it. What's your sense of the Biden administration and the border at this point?
Well, I think they're doing exactly what they said they would do, what we said they would do, and what we expected. And that is to work as quickly as possible to remove the protections that President Trump had put in. And don't forget, President Trump, he did marvelous things with foreign policy, not the least of which was our border. So he worked with Mexico, remain in Mexico policy. That's leaving. That's going away. He used Title 42, which is a law put in place to allow emergency, and he used COVID to allow us to turn away people. That's going to go away. Biden is basically incentivizing people to come here by promising amnesty to everybody who's here illegally. You don't really need any other incentive than that. So we know that cartels are advertising now, putting together caravans. We know that people have been massing there since late November, and what you're seeing is unaccompanied minors are going up. That's why they're opening up. Don't forget this, Carozza Springs in Texas. That is what the Democrats said was the concentration camp for kids. Mm-hmm. This administration is opening that up, and you don't hear anything. It's no longer a concentration camp for kids. What it is now is it's a wonderful group home that will be used temporarily. That's what they're saying. So it's all narrative to them, and we're going to see a surge like we haven't seen before. By the way, the numbers already, Seth, that are coming across that we know that we're apprehending, etc. That already is going to be pushing over 100,000 a month, and you're looking at it was 2 years ago. It was 150,000 was the highest apprehension month.
Wow.
It's going to go. We're already there under Joe Biden.
And is it good public policy? I mean, it's an obvious answer to the obvious question here, but what is the reasoning behind a public policy where ICE is going to be having new operational plans not to deport people involved in drug-based crimes, assault, property crimes, solicitation? Why would they eliminate categories for deportation? I mean, do they just want to break the system? Is that the point here?
Well, I can't really go to what their motives are. I can only tell you that what it looks like to me is they do want to break the system. Mm-hmm. They really want an open border, and they really don't care if people are terrorized by folks that are coming here illegally instead of deporting bad guys.
Mm-hmm. The other question that I had a couple calls on for you, and you can put it together however you want, is social media reform, big tech reform. A lot of talk lately that the state legislatures seem to be wanting to take an interest in it. Minnesota seems to want to. Texas looks like it's putting together a piece of state legislation to ban viewpoint or political viewpoint discrimination. Is that the best way to go right now since the Democrats are in charge in Washington, or what's your thought on social media and big tech reform?
Okay, so first of all, I do like that states are trying to get at it as well. Florida has a piece of legislation that's they're trying to get through as well. What we're facing in D.C., and by the way, there is movement here. There are points of agreement between Democrats and Republicans here. We're just kind of not agreeing what the tips of our fingers were on the sides of the fingers. We can get to the tips of the fingers. We might be able to actually get something done. The problem that we will always face in Congress is that you may have somebody like a Cicilline who's wrong on everything else, who may be right in some respects on this issue, okay, and those of us on the conservative side who agree. But Nancy Pelosi comes from that valley, that Silicon Valley area.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to protect that at all costs,
Mm-hmm.
and she's going to undermine what we do. So I really do like seeing the states get involved. And I'll just tell you the other thing is we need the courts to enforce Section 230. And we need, well, we won't have the DOJ here, but if states' attorneys general, who are bringing lawsuits, by the way, can take this to the federal courts and say, look, Section 230 only provides protection if you're really a platform. But when you're censoring, you become a publisher. And so that's right now, that's our two avenues, the state legislatures and the attorneys generals of the states to really try to get Section 230 enforced. And if that happens, then you're going to be nibbling away at it and provide some clarification.
Last question, I got a couple for you here, had to do with the big debate over school reopenings. You and I have been on this since April of last year, quite frankly, but it seems, now there's attention on it, particularly out of Chicago. What is your view on school reopenings in places like Chicago right now?
Well, the science hasn't changed, Seth, as you know, in 9 months. Science was pretty clear 9 months ago. We had it from other nations that were giving us their science that children can go safely back to school, and you can open school safely. And if you don't, there'll be even more risk for children, whether it's the suicide risk, depression risk, the antisocial behavior risk, the fact that we now have some students that have not been in a classroom really in almost a year. They fall behind. They don't get the attention they need, particularly if you're a special needs child of some kind. We're long past the time to open up. And I give my kudos to places like Florida and Governor Ron DeSantis, who's working on that, trying to get those schools open. But in Chicago, it's boiled, and some other locations around the country, it's boiled down to just unions versus what's best for those kids. And those union teachers have not chosen what's best for those children. Those children are suffering. They need to be able to get back in school.